right, everyone, welcome to the JDC West 2016 Human Resource Management Case Presentation. Thank you to our judges, Heather Ryan from Federated Cooperative Limited, Cheryl Carver, the Associate VP of Human Resources at the University of Saskatchewan, Therese Bure from Federated Cooperative Limited, Paula Centria Tancona from Mount Royal University, Marion Deutscher from K+S Potash Canada, Kavita Britton from Potash Corp. Competitors, you will have 20 minutes to present. Immediately following, the judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask presentators questions. The volunteer timekeeper will show the time cards at various intervals to indicate the time remaining, and will stop any speaker who exceeds the maximum time limit. No questions, comments, cell phones, or picture taking is allowed by the audience at any time. The audience will only be permitted to applaud following the question and answer period. The audience is banned from any material that bears the name or symbol of the competing university. We ask that the audience exit the room immediately following the Q&A period. You may begin when you're ready.
Picture this. You're an only child within a family, and though your family is small, you enjoy the team dynamics and the culture that you have with your parents and that relationship that you have. But your parents just broke news to you. They decided to adopt a new child into your family. You're going to have a new brother or sister. This is very similar to what is occurring at your company right now. And with the correct combination of the right procedures, communication, and policies, we are confident that you can develop a new culture that would bring your company into greater success for the future. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jimmy. I'm joined here by my colleagues Joy and Mia, and together we are Launch Consulting. We're very excited to be here today to present to you our plans that will launch Protegra into achieving excellence.
So right now, we have identified that your company there's a division between the ex-Helicon employees and your current Pareto employees. So the three issues that we have identified for you here are that there is an internal rivalry between the two different employees. The second is that there's a difference between the operational policy that happened at Helicon as well as Pareto company. And the third is a weakened employee morale. So we have came up with three alternatives for you today. The first is the sibling relationship. The second is get to know each other better. And the third is just to smoothen up the rough edges. And we believe that by smoothing up the rough edges, we will be able to build upon your current foundation in order to create a cohesive team environment for your company in order to achieve excellence. So I haven't mentioned earlier, there's a division between the two employees that you currently have, and that is because there are three issues that I will be discussing. So the first one, in terms of internal rivalry, we have identified that the Pareto employees right now, they are feeling alienated and they're not feeling valued. The reason being is that there are many support systems and a lot of support policies that are in place right now for the ex-Helico employees, but not for any of the Pareto employees. So which makes them feel like they don't belong, and there's nothing to help them get over this transition. The second is that there's negative attitude towards the ex-Halion employees because of the recent scandals that have been going on, and they are receiving special treatment, whereas the current employees, the existing employees, don't have any special treatments. The third that we have identified is that the ex-Halion employees, they didn't really choose to join your company. They may feel that they were forced to join the company because their old company was shut down. So they may feel like the employee morale for them, they might not feel like they belong to your company, and they may feel distrust or just unhappy in general. And because of that, there's a divided perception between the existing employee and the new employees that just got hired in. So we have identified that because of the internal rivalry, this may cause a toxic internal culture, which really may reduce the productivity of your company, and this will lead to your company losing potential clients. The second issue that we have identified is the difference in the operational policies. So what I mean by that is that in terms of compensation, your existing employees have been getting paid relatively less compared to the new hires, although they are in the same levels in terms of senior management, and they even have more experience than the new hires. And also we have identified that last year, for the past 12 months, your employees have not had any raise, and there was no overtime paid for the time that they have contributed to the company. The second note for this is the difference in terms of the expected utilization rate. So for the existing employees, right now the utilization rate is 75% that is expected of them, whereas the new employees, they are used to a 70% utilization rate. So this difference really impacts the productivity of the new and the existing employees. And the third note for this is the difference in terms of team structure. What I mean by this is the existing employees, they are used to having a manager just telling them what to do, so having a hierarchy and having somebody to give them orders and just listening to that order. Whereas the new hires that are coming in right now, they have an autonomous team structure where they are encouraged to come up with new ideas to help the team that they belong to. So because of the difference in the level of expectancy between the new and the existing employees, this really creates a greater divide between the two, and this really affects the employee morale as well as productivity that the employees have. So the third issue that we have identified is a weakened employee morale. So there's an uneasiness with the inflow of the employees. So your current employees feel that they are not satisfied with the new employees coming in because they don't get any support that they need in order to make this transition happen. Whereas for the new employees coming in, their company recently ended operation. So as I mentioned earlier, this is really a shock to them, and this will affect their productivity if we don't do anything about it. And the third is that there is no expectation in terms of how long the integration will take, how long it will take to fully integrate the two cultures together. So some think that it's 3 to 5 months, whereas you yourself think that it's actually going to take a few years to do this. So the expectation there is very different as opposed to what will happen in the future. So because of the low employee morale, this will lead to a reduced motivation and reduced productivity within your workforce, as well as the increased resistance to change that will come later on. So as I mentioned earlier, if you take a look at this, the lead partner from both companies, although your current existing employees have more experience, and yet they are getting paid relatively less to the new hires that are coming in. And same with your business development consultant for both of them as well. So this really affects the employee morale of your current existing employees. So as I mentioned earlier, although right now the compensation data is not released to the public, people in the company will talk, and eventually they will find out about this compensation gap. And this will affect your employee morale and the productivity within your workforce. So here I identified the cultural differences between the two companies. So in terms of Pareto, there's a hierarchy structure. So people are used to listening to the upper management and are used to being told what to do and how to do it. So, and one lead partner is in charge of 10 different consultants, whereas for new hires, they're used to having one leader with 4 consultants. So there's more autonomy between the new hires that you just hired on and the existing employees. And also the management team, one management team determined for each office in terms of your current employees, whereas for the new hires that just got hired, they are used to having one director managing and directing all the breakdown of all of your employees. However, we have identified that there are similarities between the two different culture. So the workflow processes are very similar, which makes it easier for them, especially the information technology specialists, to work together in a team. And both companies really focus on quality as well as teamwork. So it's really important to use the similarities and try to pick between the new and the old to be able to combine the two cultures together. And now Joy will talk about the alternatives that we have came up for you.
Thank you. Okay, so what do we have for you guys today? Well, we have come up, as Mia mentioned before, with 3 alternatives for your company. The first is to create a sibling relationship. So what this means is to create a subsidiary with the ex-Halicon employees so that the issues that are happening internally are not affecting the productivity of your company. The second is to be able to just get to know each other. We understand that some of your existing employees are identifying that the workers that have come in are a pleasure to work with. They like working with them. They're bringing in a new dynamic. So this is basically increasing the amount of shared time that they have, whether that's through corporate lunches, whether that's through evening network sessions, to be able to get to know each other better, and that would increase the dynamic of each team. The last one is to smooth the rough edges. So this entails building upon the foundation that you currently have in terms of integration for your company, but building upon that so that it's not only the new employees that are working through this integration, it's the entire company as a whole. So when we look at how we rated these, we went for acceptance to change. We understand that there is a challenge accepting the new employees to begin with, so that was our main concern. The second is increased productivity. So once this recommendation is implemented, are we going to see the quality of work that you would like to see and exceed it? The last one is feasibility. So your basic cost, if it's going to work with what you already have, or if you have to take on something better. So we multiplied our rankings through the percentages and then added them through. And as you can see here, with the scoring, we've identified that smoothing the rough edges will give you the best benefit. So the reason why we didn't choose the other two, a sibling relationship will cost a lot of money to be able to create a new subsidiary, and you'll basically have a sunk cost with all the money that you've put into your current integration processes. And the reason why we didn't choose to get to know each other better, we identified that even though the personal relationships do help increase productivity, we identified that we need to make sure that the workflow is cohesive, as well as building those personal relationships. So as part of our recommendation, we have 4 parts here. The first we've titled Comfort and Care. So this is basically talking to both employees, making sure everybody is on the same page and understanding what the current situation is. The second is straightening the record out. So again, because through the grapevine there are perhaps negative perceptions and attitudes that are being put forth throughout the company. So having a meeting to make sure that, this is what our current situation is. Moving forward, this is how we're going to play it out. The third is leveling the playing field. So as Mia mentioned earlier, compensation and team structure between the two companies are different. And so with this part of the recommendation, we are merging the two together, again, to be able to increase that morale. There's no question in terms of how things are done and how people are evaluated and paid. And the last is bid on. So this is the last part of the recommendation. This will ensure that both types of employees will be cohesive and be able to increase the quality of work they do and increase the number of bids that they are successful in. So looking at comfort and care, we are focusing on reassuring employees, and I just want to mention that this is something that you can implement right away. This is something that your company needs to have done right away to be able to move forward and do so quickly. So first is to have a meeting with the employees of Purito. This will enable your company to communicate what the current situation is and have them understand why we brought on the Halicon employees. The second part is to create a State of Union survey, just like you did for the Halicon employees, but also for the Purito employees, to really understand, how they're feeling with this, how they think the integration has affected their own work, and that way you'll be able to get feedback from those who have worked in your company, those who understand your values and your culture, and that will help your executive team decide on where to go next. Next is utilizing your social media platform. So we understand that you do have an internal social media platform, that comments have been made in terms of perceptions of certain employees. So this is to focus on making sure that whatever is posted there is addressed accordingly. So once there is a post, immediate response on thank you for your feedback, we will look into it, or contact me and we will discuss it further. The last is to hold discussions with both employees. So both types of employees. So your Purito employees as well as your ex-Halicon employees. And the purpose of this meeting is to eliminate the divide. Eliminate that I'm a Purito employee and you are an ex-Halicon employee. Really stress that we are now all Purito employees and that we are all driving towards the same thing. we are going to emphasize that your company would mention ex-Helicon employees are here, they're ready to work, they're ready to add to our successes. And Pareto employees, we are going to welcome you as part of our team, and we are going to work together to be able to win more of those bids. So the second part of this is a clear understanding of all employees. As I mentioned before, this blends in with our previous part of the recommendation. That is to, again, have everyone together, eliminate the divide. But before this, what is going to happen is the executive teams will meet with the Helicon employees, and we understand that a survey has already been put out, but it has to do with things such as, work-life balance and how you perceive the company and what our company is all about. But we want to make sure that how they're feeling after moving from one company to another in such a negative circumstance, how they're feeling. Really understand that, perhaps their productivity or their motivation is lower because coming into a new company after being with one for so long and then realizing that the old company that I've worked for is not the best that it can be a little bit shattering experience. So we want to make sure that those employees are taken care of and to show them that we understand where they're coming from. The second is standardizing the operations. So we understand that the way that the operations are done are quite different. So we want to ensure that we are going to create smaller teams. So teams of 4 or 5 rather than 10, we identified that small teams like this will produce better results. And doing this will create leadership opportunities. So instead of one person leading a group of 10, there'll be 2 people leading 2 groups of 5. That way, there's more leadership opportunities and you'll get better quality work. In terms of compensation, we've identified, we've set out a standard way to evaluate it. So we go by years of experience, and then we are matching the salary that the Helicon employees are expecting. So the Helicon employees are being paid what they expected, and then the Pareto employees, which are now, they're all Pareto employees, are now at the same standard, and the gap is closed. In terms of utilization, we're going to hold the 75 and 70%. We're not going any lower than that because we want our employees to strive. So having this compensation and team change will increase employee development as well as employee fulfillment. So lastly, nurturing the culture. So we are going to do 3 parts for this. The first is creating lunch and learn. So having topics that are relevant to your teams and hosting them during lunch so everyone can be together, networking, sharing their knowledge, and learning something at the same time. The second are scheduled pitch-offs. So this is going to increase the cohesiveness of your team. How this works is if a team is ready to bid to for their projects, other teams are invited to come, executives are going to sit, and basically this is just like a dress rehearsal before they go into their pitch. This way, everyone is able to give feedback, and the team that is pitching will be able to utilize that feedback and do even better when they go and pitch. Lastly is to celebrate successes. So this is taking your teams who are successful at their bids out to lunch or dinner to really just recognize the great work that they've done, not as separate employees, but cohesive teams. So now I will pass it to Jermaine, who will tell you how this is all going to be rolled out.
Thank you, Joy. So first and foremost, we want to roll out the surveys and really get an idea of what the Pareto employees feel like, so we know what changes we need to implement and what we need to discuss with them. And again, I want to say that we want to begin rolling this out in the beginning of August in 2005, and we see Mr. Cook, you playing a key role in that, and also your integration team. In addition, we also want to hold that town hall meeting to really get that communication out there, to really strive over those differences that may be currently occurring, just to eliminate all of the gossip that may be going on within your company, and also to communicate that communication plan to your employees as well, so that they're aware of how things will be more standardized, to create more of that cohesive culture, so there's not that them versus me type of environment. Next, we want to integrate that 360-degree feedback, so there would be that degree of development within your employees, and they can be more of a cohesive culture where they can communicate within their teams to work more productively. Also, we want to implement that pitch-off to really pitch off why they should win the bid and how to improve them being able to acquire that client. And finally, we want to begin Lunch and Learn so that we can really have the employees learn from each other. Perhaps the ex-Halicon employees will have a lot of great information that they can contribute to your company. In terms of assessing our possible risks, what we have prepared for you right here is a heat map, which assesses the likelihood and impact of different types of risks. The yellow represents low risk, the orange represents moderate risk, and the red represents high risk. The area that I want to draw your attention to is number 1, which is resistance to change between your employees. And we really want to obtain employee feedback to really overcome this and really integrate that feedback within what we are going to do in the future. Next, in terms of the cost-benefit analysis, we've allocated a total cost of $14 million to $15 million for this, and this is mainly due to the raises that we will be experiencing in restructuring our compensation system. But I want to point out that this will only be 4% of the last year's revenue, so this is a small amount. So tying everything together, we are confident that our plan will help Protego in achieving excellence and in terms of prosperity, connectedness, and technology. Thank you very much for listening.
I have a question. Just in terms of, you set the tone of analogizing this to a family and bringing in someone. When we look at the compensation and linking that to years of service, do you see that as a concern in terms of the engagement piece and the development? If I link it back to your analogy, it's like the eldest children are going to get the most pay. So do you see any concerns with that going forward if that's our compensation strategy?
No, we don't see any concern to that. The reason being this is just the base salary, and there will be bonuses depending on the utilization rate that the employees are doing. If they go over that 70% or 75% of the utilization rate, they will get a bonus on top of that. So it really depends on your years of experience as well as how well you do on the job.
You factored into that in your cost benefit analysis of the 14 million, where you're saying you'll have a bonus that will be, because bonuses are typically a base salary. So you're going to increase your base salary, you're going to add bonuses. Have you put that number into your 14 million?
We do see the bonuses coming in a little bit later on, which will be tied to the 360-degree feedback system that we will be implementing. So if, for instance, that team has a higher utilization rate than what we've set forth, then they would receive a bonus that is proportional to that.
Did you mention about the to enhance the cohesiveness, you want to reduce the team sizes about 45? So would that be feasible in certain projects, like some projects may require large teams? Usually that is kind of the situation. So
Yep.
what are recommendations?
So our idea for that is your base team is going to be 4 to 5 people. We understand that generally that produces better outcomes. However, we do recommend to do it by a case-by-case basis. So if there is a bigger project that somebody is bidding on, 2 teams can potentially be merged together and there will be 2 leadership roles there as well.
Do you see any concern on that idea with where people just feel like somebody's watching over them all the time? If you've got, one leader and you've only got, 2 or 3 or whatever direct reports, would you start to go, gee, I have no autonomy now, I've got somebody.
Yes, that's an excellent question, and I should clarify. So the ratio would be 1 to 4 or 5. So if it is a full team of 10, then there would be 2 leaders. If it's just 6, then 1 leader will be able to handle that 1 team. At the same time, the autonomy will be able to be seen in that because the leader is not necessarily the person that is barking orders. The leader is responsible for working alongside with the team and being that point of contact as well as making the tough decisions if there is a divide within their own team for certain decisions.
We thought of ethical issues given the scandal.
Mm-hmm. We definitely wanted to address that in the town hall meeting and say that we are mutually exclusive from what occurred in the other issue. We don't see that occurring again in the future, and we believe that the new employees that we have taken on are not associated with what occurred.
One thing when you were talking about some of the compensation, you mentioned about no overtime pay. typically in industry, you wouldn't see someone at an engineering professional level eligible for overtime. So tell me a little bit more about what your thinking is on that.
In terms of overtime, we would do what is best practice. So for example, if they are working a longer than expected day, let's say for example they have a really big project, they're working 7 days a week, 14-hour days. After that project is completed, we can compensate them in terms of a paid day off rather than paying them overtime, because that's going to increase your costs.
But that then affects your billable hours for that person, so there still is a cost, right?
Yes, there is, but in terms of the single time pay versus the double time pay per hour for overtime pay.
So if the survey results from the employees that haven't been surveyed yet turn out to be fundamentally different, how are you going to build that into your strategy?
I think that would be feasible to be done during the combined meeting where all the Pareto employees are coming together. We can discuss generally what is coming out in those surveys, and we can be able to discuss, you know, where is that coming from, where is the differences, and then decide based on that what we will move forward with. So if everyone agrees with one way of approaching it, then we can look at how feasible it is and carry it out in the future.
I've got 80% of my employees, that's the company, so 20% are coming in through the acquired company. How do you see from a grassroots level involving leaders and teams? We've talked lots about making the analogy to a family. So how do you, tell me a little bit more about that leadership role and what you see. Key things for that. I mean, we talk about the town hall meeting, but like things beyond that.
We would love to answer that question, but unfortunately time is up.
It's over. Thank you.
All I can think